Hi, my name is Garrett Christopher, and this is my YouTube channel. This is part 2 of episode 3, and we're talking about As Good as It Gets. I take that back. I didn't really talk about it in the part 1, but today, part 2, I'm going to talk about it. Just as a reminder, please recognize what this is right here, okay? I have 2 other YouTube channels, by the way. There's Garet's Sports Take and Garet's Take. Please check them out. Let me know what you think. I'm also a self-published author. My website has all this information for you, Pt.2. You'll see that I'm also, I have a couple of books on Audible, a couple of audio books based on my novels, as well as a weekly podcast available both on Soundcloud and Spotify. So there you go. There are my plugs. So my whole goal in this channel is to share with you a particular movie that you may know or may not know, may have seen, may not have seen, and I want to express my love for that particular movie, and also talk about some things that I wasn't crazy about with the movie, but it still made my top list, and and then convince you, if you either disagree or haven't seen it, to hey, check it out, watch it a second time, watch it a third time, and let me know what you think. But I think good movie. Anything that I put on here is going to be something worth your couple of hours of watching, and I will warn you. So let's just say this right here, right now. I will tell you ahead of time when I post-view Fletch. I'm calling it a post-view because it's not a preview, because Fletch has been out for decades, as well as most of the movies that I'm going to talk about. But I will warn you ahead of time. Hey, if you don't like Chevy Chase, then just skip past this and don't watch Fletch, because Fletch is all Chevy Chase. If you don't like that goofy kind of smart aleck type of thing, don't watch it, right? My mother hates Fletch. No, I don't know if she hates Fletch, but she does hate Fletch. and as far as that movie and that type of movie, really could do without it. Hates Rodney Dangerfield, and I love him. So yeah, so I'll tell you ahead of time. Hey, don't waste your time if you don't like this kind of movie. There you go. But this one, As Good as It Gets, is funny. It's a rom-com, which I'm not a real fan of rom-coms unless they're really, really good. And this one to me is really, really good. So something I thought about, I'm kind of going with, kind of getting away from this being this typical, hey, I'm give this one an A- here and an A here, and I'll talk about all those topics here in a second. But I thought about this. With a rom-com, which can be sometimes very bland, even if you really like the actors and actresses in the movie, and the topic is pretty good, and it's the breakup, for instance. Yeah, I like the characters; they're fine. But is it a movie that I could do without? Yeah, probably. Will I watch a few minutes of it? Excuse me, while it's on TV? Maybe a few minutes. But really, I don't find it all that interesting and funny. So why do I find As Good as It Gets, as one of my tops, right? Well, Jack Nicholson, of course, is in it. Helen Hunt is in it. Cuba Gooding Jr. is in it. Greg Kinnear is in it. So just tons of stuff. And James L. Brooke putting it together. So I guess Mark Andrus, he was the one that originally came up with the writing, with the idea, and they came together and went from there and put it together. But I think that there is a strong level of kind of a discomfort, specifically with Jack Nicholson's character, like what he says, oh God, don't say that, oh don't do that. And I thought about that for a second. So wait a minute, isn't that the draw to some comedic shows? Seinfeld. Every time George said something, you're like, oh God, why did you say that? Or every time Kramer did something, oh, or Elaine, a lot of times it's like, no, don't do that. The Office, the U.S. version, every time Michael said something, every time it was like, no, don't do that, it's so uncomfortable, and you kind of get drawn into it. And I think in this case, Jack Nicholson's character, aside from him just being, to me, Jack, I mean, that's him, again, I don't know him, but that's him as far as the character, and I don't know how much directing he needed to put this out there and portray the character in the movie, but him saying uncomfortable things and things that are kind of on edge and like, oh, I didn't mean it that way, and that kind of thing. I'll tell you what, I find myself doing that all the time. It's like I say something, I didn't mean it that way. I meant this. I know what I'm thinking, but it doesn't come across that way, right? I think there's a draw to that a little bit when you're watching something that you want. Oh no, don't do that, and then kind of go from there, right? So let's go through the grades and my particular topics. Let's see if I can read this without glasses. Okay, so the plot or the story is one topic that I cover. Dialogue, casting, originality, directing, editing, and then the score or the music, right? So on down the line, I kind of gave A minuses pretty much, and then a B plus for the score. So even though in my head right now I can kind of remember, the main theme to the movie, it wasn't overly, and this wasn't a movie based on that. It wasn't based on sound effects. It wasn't based on some incredible score, but there was, something to go along, doom, doom, boom, boom, something to go along with it to, kind of fit in there like that. So I give it a B plus for that one. Everything else, A minus. I did give casting. I'm sorry, I gave casting an A because I felt they nailed it. On down the line, from I talked about this in part one, Harold Ramis in his position to Jack Nicholson and everyone in between. I felt they nailed it. That they chose the right people. Again, how can you go wrong with the cast that they chose? But even those who were on the sidelines and doing this and that, whatever like that, I think they nailed it all up and down the line. So I gave that one an A. Everything else an A minus because it's like, okay, the originality. The fussy neighbor versus, okay, you took a little spin there, so it's the gay neighbor and the, anti-gay, evil, neighbor and that kind of a thing. But that's kind of been, a little fighting back and forth done before. Maybe not to this degree, but it's been there before. The plot and the story, same thing. Some of the stuff is pulled from, but again, A minus. I give it. Editing, was it great? Were there some scenes that the lighting could have been different? Perhaps. Because I kind of felt like maybe the mood wasn't as much. So for instance, when you have in Melvin Udall's apartment and he's, doing his writing, he's a writer, right? And he's doing his thing and he's trying to concentrate and then there's a knock at the door and blah, blah, blah. Is that mood lighting just right? Is the mood lighting when he and Helen Hunt are about to have their first dinner together, is that just right? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Oh, also with the score, the song that was playing in the background when they're there and they're kind of talking, she's at the bar and he walks in like that. The girl singing was almost kind of irritating a little bit. I'm sorry, young lady, whoever you are, but it's just how they put it together. Maybe in the mix could have been set back a little bit more. So just little things, minor things. One more thing also, and this is kind of along the lines, but not casting, but I think as far as the plot. To me, Greg Kinnear's character, right, in the movie is he's definitely a victim, right? Definitely a victim, and yet just a sweetheart of a person, and a kind individual, and that's what kind of draws him and draws you into him. Wants to see him succeed, and that's what makes this dichotomy between himself and Jack Nicholson so great because they're so opposite. They think, as far as that's concerned, right? And they both find within themselves that they're a little more, similar than they thought, especially on Jack's side. But there's one place where just before Greg is injured, and I hope I'm not giving this away if you haven't seen the movie yet, but where do we have time-wise there? I've got to get some better glasses. You know what? I'm sorry. We have to go to a part 3. I talk too much. GaretChristopher.com. We'll go to a part 3, and I promise I'll sum this up real quick. I'm going to get a short one, okay? Fair enough. Thanks. GoPro, stop recording.